almost didn't get out of the garage.
You wouldn't let you through?
Yeah.
Same here. I tried probably 15 times.
The other day I had to go around.
Need to ask them to fix that. The latch to come out of the garage.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, April 29th. We're here for the Franklin County Commissioners meeting.
Still got 1 minute.
Oh. All right.
It should wait till 9. That's what happens when you get here early.
Right. It's Wednesday, April 29th, 2026. We're here for the Franklin County Commissioners meeting. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask that you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adoption of current agenda. Is there any additions or corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we add an item to regular business for proposed action. That item would be, we got yesterday a invoice for the second half of the betterments for the Columbia Valley Center for Recovery. I'd like to add that for discussion and proposed action. And with that, I would move for approval of the agenda as presented with that one correction or addition.
So I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Public comment. Is there anyone in the room today for public comment? If so, please come forward, state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Marcy Torres, and I am a resident of Pasco. Last time I talked to you about a police report, and today I'm going to read another one. I hope that by the time that you guys see what evidence these officers are having, why aren't people being criminally charged that clearly have evidence of a crime? This is considered false reporting. And this was my attempt to remain safe after I've requested protection orders and exchanges at a police department. Spoke with respondent, said that several times mother has had unidentified third party drop off the child. Per child, this person was directed by mother to do so. Respondent advised that they were in protected custody case and directed them to contact the attorney. Respondent said that if the situation occurred again, that he would record license plate and report his child as being kidnapped. Advised respondent that it would be considered false reporting and advised him not to do so unless the child was physically in danger. This is false reporting. And the police officers know this, and they're not doing anything. I was cited on false allegations of abuse and had to hire an attorney with money I didn't have and go to court for 3 years. This is not okay. I was just in court this morning with Edith, who's being tried They're trying to charge her with the Class C felony. During her divorce, her ex signed over the title of the vehicle. Now he's coming years later and trying to charge her with theft of a vehicle, which would be a Class C felony. This is ridiculous. Her hearing was at 8 a.m., and I've been in court since 8 for her. This is not okay. I don't know what we need to do, but this needs to be taken care of. And police officers need to start following the law. Because if the law states that false reporting is a crime, there should be no reason why 5 years later I have a whole list of crimes that have been committed, and there's police reports about them, and nothing has ever been done about them. But I had to deal with a false DV charge for 3 years. It sounds like a setup, and the system is being used to retaliate against people. And our rights are being violated. Do we understand that when that's happening, people are not doing their jobs, that we become target to lawsuits? Taxpayers do, because we're employing these people. So it's time to hold them accountable. Thank you.
Greetings in peace and in truth in the name of Almighty God. I, Sherry Elizabeth, non-person, non-resident, a woman of faith, and a servant of Almighty God, present this claim for criminal acts committed against the estate name of Becker Sherry Elizabeth by your Franklin District Court and former Civil Deputy Prosecutor Jennifer L. Johnson. And Gerald Roach and Kelly Fields are all part of it. The crime of making up a fictional bench warrant and the crime of Cody Quantrell, who made a false claim of driving while licenses suspended when in fact I, Sherry Elizabeth, surrendered the driver's license voluntarily on March 19th, 2019 to remove myself from the legal fiction state of Washington. A for-profit corporation using the DUNS number 079248936. The crimes by your for-profit court have caused me to be falsely arrested 3 times, most recently on April 7th. And there are constitutional violations against my life and freedom of movement. I ask you to redress these actions and grievances in truth and with integrity. God bless each of you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Michelle Andrews, 2:30 this afternoon. There is an emergency hearing by the 4 and now 7 counties that are petitioning on the sheriff's bill. And there will be an email coming out later today, so please check those because there's further action and meetings accruing. So I do ask that you watch that at 2:30 on TVW if you have the time. I know that you're very busy. You have very full schedules. But I do want to continue advocating for this unconstitutional law that the counties fighting on unconstitutional grounds is now joining our executive branch in this state on the grounds that they're fighting us. And I believe it comes to a point of even levying war against their own citizens. So thank you, and I will be in touch. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Back again. The first time that I spoke with you, I mentioned that I wanted this to matter to you because when it does matter, you do take action and you are able to help out. Do still applaud the fact that you've asked questions. You know, I know that this workshop will be an avenue that we can answer some of the questions and kind of get you up to speed with where we're trying to go with this. We're still getting all of our stakeholders involved. It does impact the community. It impacts Franklin County. It impacts your city police. It impacts our prosecuting attorney. It impacts the citizens, the most importantly. But our city council members, I want them advice, and I sent out the requests, and I had a lot to ask from you, and I understand you're limited, and I love the fact that when you come back and you say, this is what we can't do, because that gives me the opportunity to tell you what you can do. Now, you guys didn't do that necessarily. You've already started asking the questions, and it's something that Benton County county commissioners have failed to do. They've summarily said, we don't really care. And I'm paraphrasing for sure, but I got a whole response from them that of everything they won't do. I did let them know what they could do. And it was simply, have you asked anybody a question about what's happening? Do you realize how systemic this is and that it is a problem? Our Attorney General, Nick Brown, he started out this campaign, he started out with his whole year saying that he emphasized asserting the state's legal authority and holding powerful interests accountable when they violate laws and harm the public. His office recognizes that the citizens of Washington State have lost faith in the government actions, totally lost faith. He's proposed that he's going to try to make that change so that we have faith back. When we have these systems in place that fail, like I mentioned, our recourses as designed are to contact the Commission on Judicial Conduct. Again, I told you, over 95% dismissed flat out. We know that. That's their stats. Same with the Washington State Bar Association. They're dismissed, okay? What's our recourse when that happens? We don't know why it was dismissed. They just say, we find it's not relevant. We find nothing wrong. We find you didn't do this right or whatever, but there's not, where do we go from there? There is nothing else. Who's holding them accountable? And we know it's systemic. We know that this stuff's going on in the courts, and you've got hundreds of people that are presenting the information. We're not all going to be able to be told we're wrong when they're all the same. There's too much of a pattern that's very, very similar all the way through. We can't all be wrong, can we? So everything that they're dismissing, that makes me question them. I lost faith in them completely, just on the face of the fact that they have that much of a dismissal rate. That alone tells me I'm questioning everything that they do. How do I trust? Where's that going to come from? Starting with the workshop today, things that we want to propose and get your opinion.
Hello, Commissioners. So, by what authority? That is the question. By what authority does a judge have the ability above the Constitution to steal a child? Does anybody have in writing, can you show me, anyone, where the authority above the Constitution is in writing? The men of 1776 wouldn't like the answer that our servants can't help. Yesterday in the Benton County Commissioners meeting, they said you guys lacked leadership, specifically Jerome Delvin. I don't know what's going on here, but there seems to be a conspiracy going on against the people. I am dumbfounded by the fact that right in this second, children are being stolen, cars are being stolen, homes are being stolen, grandmas are being stolen, kidnapped, murdered, pets murdered. By what authority? That's the question we have to ask. Can anybody here provide in writing the judge's authority over the Constitution? That's the question. Until we have that, every single judge needs to stop stealing children until somebody can provide that to us in writing. Again, the only reason for government is to secure our rights. That's it. There's no other reason for government. So if somebody, like the commissioners over there, I appreciate you guys helping, I really do. This is a start. It's not the finish. We're just getting started. Every Friday or every Sunday from this point on, I have a show called The Two-Tiered Takedown at 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, and we're going to expose this corruption every single week. As people come forward, I'm going to show pictures and text and proof and evidence that our judges are committing crimes against the people. And I will not stop until they are in cuffs. So we have to start asking that question. If anybody can actually provide in writing where their authority is above the Constitution, I would love to get that. My email is onenewearth@pm.me, and it can be emailed to me, that in writing. Otherwise, every single judge needs to stop today. Because if they don't, well, we the people are going to rise up, and we're going to remove them all. All right? Thank you so much.
Hello, my name's Brianna Geppert. I am a mom of 4. In August of 2024, my health started, and my kids were ripped out of my home from an ex parte, and given permanent guardianship to family members. Judge Bronson did this without applying constitutional standards the law required him to apply. He did it after ignoring 3 state agencies that closed their investigations of me unfounded. He did it after the court visitor, the neutral officer in the case, recommended my daughters be returned to me. Judge Bronson's really never used the words clear and convincing evidence. That is the standard in Santosky versus Kramer and Washington law required before permanently removing a child from a fit parent. He skipped it. And before him, Commissioner Whitmire told my attorney when she presented CPS unfounded finding and the Richland Police, 2 Richland Police reports unfounded, and Kids Haven interview results, her words were, that doesn't change my mind. That was a judicial officer announcing in advance that she would not consider the conclusion of every state agency tasked with protecting children, and it is not discretion, it is abandonment of it. I'm in an appeal right now and fighting an appeal and a judicial complaint. I've been sober from alcohol for 7 years. I voluntarily completed 7 months of outpatient treatment, every test negative. I did a hair follicle test that was negative. I enrolled my family in intensive outpatient in-home therapy years before any of this happened. The order also requires me to pay for my supervised visits when I had my kids legally for years, and it's because of angry people and my parents that took them away illegally. I really want my kids back. I want justice. I want this not to happen to another parent. This is highly unfair, and I'm just lucky I'm still around and being able to function properly and start school and have a job, because literally my entire life was torn from me, and it's been now almost 2 years, 2 birthdays, 2 holidays, all my holidays for the last 2 years. So I really want justice, and I want something to happen. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Hi, I'm Aaron, and I'm from Benton County, and I've been just a camera person coming to the commissioner meetings in Benton County. I've probably been to 10 of them now. I've paid attention to 4 of them here in Franklin County, and listening to the people, what they say into this microphone, they've all got the same story about what's happening in our family courts, how judges just disregard the truth and they see these children as dollar signs to pass around. It's not justice. It's a business model where we're monetizing, tearing families apart. And it's always the responsible parent that falls short, and they have to fight like hell to the last dollar just to see their kid. It goes beyond just court corruption. I would go so far as to say that is legalized human trafficking. It's evil, and it's going to stop. And I would like to see it stop with the help of the county commissioners. Benton County, I've given up on them. You go there, you point a problem at them. What do? They all point at each other. They play hot potato with accountability. It's a joke. Here, I'm seeing more willingness to do something about it. Clint, you've encouraged, Mr. Commissioner Didier, you've encouraged us to continue showing up, using our voices. And I want to second that, because we need voices. We need people to come out here, make their voices heard, and the truth needs to start mattering again, especially in court where the children are the ones who suffer the most. The most innocent and precious population suffers the most. It's wrong, it's evil, and it's going to end. Thanks for your time.
There will be another public comment at the end of the meeting.
Good morning. I'm Deborah Windsor. I'm a mother, a grandmother, and to a grandson whose rights are being violated by the family court system. I strongly believe my grandson has equal rights to both of his parents, as long as they're both behaving like adults. I believe the court should stop basing their rulings on a vindictive parent and recognize when the other parent is scared and afraid of parenting or during their co-parenting. If a person comes to a court without an attorney, that person has equal rights. Then a ruling on the facts and evidence can be made. If they don't have an attorney, wouldn't it be best if the commissioners and the judges recommended that they come back with one? I mean, that's just simple. Just please, save a child from despair. Recommend that they come back with an attorney so that they can fight for their child right then. This is not happening right now in my family's particular case. My grandson was basically turned over to his father, who was given full custody, and his mother only had a couple of hours to explain to him what was happening. This is not only unfair to him, but it was wrong on every level. It's like he's living in a war zone in another country, and his whole family just got decimated. His mother, grandparents, great-grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousin, just wiped off the face of the earth. Can somebody explain to me how he must be feeling and adapting to all of this? Those were the people who acted as constants in his life. This is cruel, an unusual punishment for a small child. He is being treated worse than a criminal. Even criminals have more rights than he does. Murderers, rapists, child molesters, they all get a second chance to be reformed, rehabilitated, and their rights restored. And they get to have contact with their children once again. When you become a parent, you're not handed a manual on how to operate. Therefore, people are bound to make mistakes. We all know that typically there are two sides to every story, and when one person is not fully committed to their relationship, the child suffers. I beg the courts to keep these things in mind, and please stop treating my grandson like a criminal without any rights and treat him like a small child instead. Thank you.
Got a caller.
We have a caller online. Okay.
Caller?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. You
Jake,
have 3 minutes.
you got it. Jake Dorsey, 4522 Moline Lane of Pasco. Just wanted to thank everyone who voted in the recent levy election, statistically putting it over the line. Supporting our children with our tax dollars is as democratic as it is essential. I know the school district listens to all voices, and I'm just really thankful that they were willing to put this election out a second time so that we could basically keep our kids going through all our public schools. And that's all I've got. Thank you so much, commissioners. Have a good day.
Is there anyone else in the room for public comment?
Just Fortin. DHSH, in their own oversight, don't have time or the ability to do anything but process. Any other state, they handle up to 200 clients. DHSH, Benton County, Franklin County, have 500 to 600. They can't investigate, they can't look, they can't process. That's all they're doing is processing, pushing it through They don't have time to look. Some of this is not all their fault. Some of this is the only cases they investigate is what they want to bring forward. Paperwork was submitted 3.5 years ago from an out-of-state court, marked dismissed, paid in full, reconciled. They submit 7 of the 11 pages and pull $57,000 out of my account. Start garnishing. Never seen a day in court. It's been 3.5 years. I can't get them corrected. I've drawn down, picked up the correct paperwork, submitted it to them. They admit they made a mistake. It should have been handled differently, but they won't refund it. They won't stop taking it. What can I do? They said, get a lawyer. With what? I try everything I can. I'm there for my child every time I can. But I can't even provide a home for them. They're taking over 50% because they can take the other for arrears. Going back to 2017 at $1,967 a month. I can't even afford to keep up my certifications to keep working. When's the last time somebody went and tried to get their enhanced ID of $300 and some odd just to get a license? They take everything they can. There's no oversight. What they want to investigate, they bring forward. Right in their own words, in their information, we made a mistake, but they won't correct it. Right there, knowing fraud, mishandled. You should have seen, we got your information, we requested it, tear open the packet right in front of him. And all there was a visitation order. You should have seen his face. Oh, you made a mistake. Well, good luck. What do we do? Where do we go? I've taken every avenue, went to their so-called court, administrative hearings, twice. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the room for public comment?
Good morning. My name is Melissa Good, and I'm a member of this community. And I initially came before all of you and on public record due to the fact that my daughter was being groomed. However, sadly, I have looked into a lot of other things that are going on in this community and have gone on in this community and in our state, and I have to pivot because this is terrifying. I'm going to read you the LinkedIn account of Mr. Jerry Davis, whom was an attorney here for many years and all over the state. He was convicted several years ago because he managed to get custody through CPS of a 3- and 5-year-old boy. And for 3 years, he had them in his custody, moved them away from their family, managed to manipulate the CPS court to get custody of these boys. And he was trafficking them. He was sodomizing them for 3 years. 3 and 5 years old. This is his LinkedIn. Preside over administrative law appeals for Child Protective Services. Adult Protective Services, aged, blind, and disabled. Child care subsidies, adult family homes licensing, housing and essential needs in TANF. Attempting to help the faith community and the state come together to ensure all foster kids have safe homes in Thurston County. This man had custody of a 3- and 5-year-old for 3 years, and he is convicted of sodomizing them. And not only that, he was inviting people off of the internet to come and join him in his sadistic practices for 3 years. What has happened in this state as far as who's going back? He was also considered a child advocate, which means he had private one-on-one access to our children whom are in the system and are already vulnerable, clearly because they're in CPS services, right? What may he have done? What things have been going on behind closed doors in these situations? He managed to manipulate the system so he could get custody himself of these two young boys. It goes much, much deeper than this. I spoke with a family member of these boys, and I was appalled and shocked to find out that allegedly, according to this family member, he had done the same thing to the boy's father already. That report was sealed, and he was aided in gaining custody of these two boys for years. Can you fathom what that does to a family? 2 generations of systemic abuse in this kind of a fashion.
Is there anyone else in the room for public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners. Andy Revis. I'm going to continue talking about the family court corruption. Several things that have come up over the last few meetings. Why is something not done? And part of it is the way parents, us as parents, are decimated financially, emotionally, physically, everything through these courts. These attorneys, I've been in hundreds of court hearings. The attorneys sit behind a black screen on Zoom. I don't know if they're playing solitaire or assisting another client, doubling their money. But they do not have to show their face. But as parents, we have to take off work. We have to show up at court. And if we are on Zoom, we have to have our cameras on. And we have to sit there and wait while sometimes 10, 15 other people go through their court proceedings until we can. We had to take off work to do it. And then we had to pay the attorney. We have to pay everything. When the state first took my kids, they wanted $3,000 a month in child support because they were the non-custodial parent, or I was the non-custodial parent. I needed to pay the state child support $3,000 a month. Thankfully, that law was overturned, and parents are no longer required to pay the state child support. But I was out thousands of dollars before that. And if they can break you down financially, so you cannot keep fighting, that's the goal. And the retaliation, I've heard a lot about retaliation, and it is a real thing. I know a grandfather and his friend in Idaho that they were awarded a $50 million judgment against them for speaking up. They were sued and they lost, and there was a $50 million judgment against a pastor and a heavy equipment mechanic. They will never in their lifetime make $50 million extra to pay back. And that was a retaliatory suit against them because they spoke up and stood up for a little baby that was taken from his mother and not allowed to see his mother. And there was nothing wrong with that little baby. They got the baby back eventually, but now they're facing $50 million in a judgment. Retaliation is real. I said something last week. I talked to Tom Dent, the representative who was at that point the lead for the DCYF committee in Washington State. I was like, okay, we'll go to the senators, like you guys have said. I was talking to Representative Dent. He told me his attorney advised him to stop talking to me. Why would an attorney tell you to stop talking to a concerned constituent?
Is there anyone else in the room for public comment? Hearing, seeing none. Moving on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of consent agenda items 1 through 10 as presented.
I second.
We have a motion. Approval of consent agenda items 1 through 10. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Regular business presentation, family law, presented by Jeff Briggs, Chief Civil Deputy, Prosecuting Attorney.
Oh, right, and Mr. Ziegler's here as well. I think he's going to chime in if he wants to. He's certainly welcome to. So, thank you for the introduction, Chair. As he noted, I'm Jeff Briggs. I'm the Chief Civil Deputy Prosecutor for Franklin County. This is kind of a good introduction with the public comments into the issue or the topic we're discussing today. And normally when I'm presenting, I would be sitting over there. It seems appropriate to sit here so I can actually look at you all and you're not just staring at the back of my head while I talk about this. But my plan here is to sort of talk about the authority of the court, the authority of the Board of Commissioners, and how those two authorities align with one another, and then just to talk about family court generally, and probably close with some resources for everyone, and what I think, in my opinion, everyone could do. I would preface this presentation with a disclaimer that I'm not everyone's attorney here. Obviously, I'm a prosecutor for the county. So this is for informational purposes only. It's not, intended to be legal advice for everyone. I think you're all smart enough to know that, but I just wanted to let you know that. But we'll jump in with the court's authority. I know that's been raised in comments in the past weeks. My view of this is, the court's authority really comes from Article 4, Section 6, which states that the Superior Court shall have original jurisdiction in all matters of divorce and of all proceedings in which jurisdiction shall not have been vested exclusively in some other court. And then the legislature has actually, given authority under Title 26, which is a family court, and Title 13, which is juvenile court. So you actually have two branches of government sort of working together, to create family court and juvenile court. The board obviously has authority over caring and managing for every, department of the county and every elected office, including the courts. And the board, interestingly enough, is sort of acting as a legislative and executive branch within its sort of sphere of authority. So these three branches, I was kind of thinking of a good analogy. We've got executive, legislative, and judicial, a good analogy for how they work together. And initially I was thinking it's kind of like paper, rock, scissors, but that's not a fair analogy or metaphor because, the three branches kind of overlap with the scope of their authority. And I just kind of discussed a little bit of how that works, where you have the judges on the one hand ruling on all, court matters, but then you have the board, setting the judge's budget. So family court, as I'm sure you all know, is practiced almost entirely based on declarations. The declarations almost entirely will form the factual basis, for the proceedings, and that's something that I know firsthand. About 10 years ago, I dabbled in family law. I worked for a general practice firm that, among other areas, they did family law. So I've actually done some parenting plan cases, some, divorce cases. And I know in doing those cases, in my personal view, I didn't really like, having pro se, litigants on the other side. Because I felt like it made things not go as smoothly, and that's because everyone in family court is sort of held to these same rules of procedure, as I'm sure you all know. There's the civil procedure rules, there's the statutes that establish the substantive rights, and then there's also the local rules. But even reading all of those rules, it's still kind of confusing until you actually practice it for a while and understand how the court operates. I know everyone here really feels for you, like the board, myself, we're all parents. We all have kids, and I know it would be devastating to all of us if we, weren't able to see our kids on a regular basis. And so we want to offer whatever help that we can, but we're kind of limited as we're constrained within our respective roles in the government. I'm not here to, give advice on everything about how family law works or how the substantive law works or even how the Constitution works. But there is criteria for establishing a final parenting plan. I'm sure you're all aware of that. The court looks at various factors, but they're really looking at, what's the best interest of the child, right? That's the driving, factor, all the factors that the court is looking at in terms of the history of the parents working together, the child's relationship with each parent, socioeconomic factors, the child's wishes. If the child's sufficiently mature, they certainly, oftentimes when there's a disputed parenting plan, they'll have a guardian ad litem report as well as part of that. And then I know people have mentioned limiting factors, which is like domestic violence issues. So how can we help you? I don't know that the board can directly help here, but I wanted to start with some general areas of help. Of course, there's the Washington Court website, which has all the statutes. It also has the required forms, but not all the forms, right? There's certain forms that don't exist on Washington Court's website, and that in and of itself can be very confusing. One example that comes to mind are the note for motion paperwork you've got to attach, right? You've got to have your note for motion, your declaration, and your order, right? You've got to have all those things presented to the court, and Washington Court's website doesn't have that. There's also a family court facilitator here in Franklin County you can schedule a meeting with, and they can actually review your forms. So you complete your forms. They're not there to give you legal advice, but they can actually review those forms for you and tell you, well, I think you have all the forms there. If you're dealing with a domestic violence issue, there's Domestic Violence Services of Tri-Cities. There's Benton Franklin Legal Aid, which I'm going to discuss in greater detail here in a minute. And then there's Northwest Justice Project. But let's say you're not happy with the outcome. It sounds like a lot of you are in the phase now where, the hearing's already happened. So you can't go, or you feel like you can't go to those agencies now, although I would recommend going there. But you do have appeal rights. You can appeal any final order of the court, obviously, and that goes up to a higher court. You can also, as people have mentioned, complain to the Bar Association about attorneys. You can complain to the Council on Judicial Conduct, the Judicial Conduct Commission, with complaints about judges. And I know that the statistics might not be in favor of a finding, but I couldn't tell you. I don't review those personally. I do know that every month we get our bar journal, and I always flip to the back to see if I know any colleagues, because there's usually a lot about. This was a light month because I see about 3 that were suspended, reprimanded, and one resigned in lieu of discipline. But oftentimes there's a lot more attorneys who are being disbarred, suspended, reprimanded, and so on. So I know that the Bar Association takes that very seriously. The Judicial Ethics Board does as well. They recently removed Judge Swanberg, right? That's a local example of a judge that was removed from office. I just saw recently a pro tem judge in King County. I believe his name was Razumna. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but he was removed as a pro tem because he tried to get cheap parking. He fraudulently submitted a document that he used a judge's signature stamp, alleging he was a county employee when he was a pro tem, so he wasn't officially a county employee, just to save $10 in parking. And that violation was significant enough to the board that they removed him from office for that. So they do I think the regulatory bodies work well, but when you're submitting complaints to them, it's just like submitting declarations to the court. You really want to make sure in those that you're saying, what you know and how you know it. I know that this occurred on this date. This person said this, and I know that because I witnessed it. Or if someone else witnessed it, they should be the one, signing the declaration. But again, not legal advice, not getting into the weeds too much on that. I just know that that can sort of be a pitfall. And again, this dates back to my family law practice. I know when my clients would submit declarations to me, oftentimes I'd have to call them and say, hey, this isn't going to work. I need to know specifically how you know this, what specifically occurred, dates and times, and then, that oftentimes, we'll get the judge to consider it within, the matter that's being presented for a hearing. So let's go back, though, to the resources. I had mentioned Ben Franklin Legal Aid. I actually spoke with them yesterday. I kind of gave them late notice about this, but they have a wealth of programs, not just on family law, and I left some cards up there on the table, but they help with evictions and getting protection orders, even if it's not in the context of a family law case. And they're a good source, I think, when you're not sure where to go also. They can sort of guide you because like all the other local nonprofit organizations, they sort of work in tandem with one another. So, for example, if you're dealing with a serious domestic violence issue and the other side has an attorney and you don't, they would probably direct you to Northwest Justice Project. There are requirements for having an assigned attorney. It's not just that the other side has an attorney. You would also need to submit financial paperwork to show that you qualify. But let's say you don't qualify. Worst case scenario, I think it's at 200% of the federal poverty guideline is the cutoff. If you don't qualify, they can still assist you, similar to what the family court facilitator does here, with filling out the paperwork. So you can go down there. They have every third Wednesday of the month. They do like a family law clinic. You can show up, and they have a limited licensed legal technician that's there 5 days a week. They have a network of attorneys that work pro bono. They don't have attorneys on staff that provide family law services. That's Northwest Justice, and again, that's more tied to domestic violence. But it's a good place to go and get a sense of where you fit into that system, because it sounds like a lot of you might be able to benefit from services that they offer, particularly even if you don't qualify. You can get those forms, assistance with an attorney helping you look at your forms. The other thing I just wanted to mention briefly, if anyone's in a divorce, I don't know if all these are divorces or if they're not, but if you're unable to pay in a divorce, oftentimes you can make a motion for the other side to pay your fees. Other services that Ben Franklin Legal Aid would assist with are filing fees, transcription, guardian ad litems, which I know can be very expensive. You're talking, over $1,000, and the parties split that sort of pro rata. They can help with that. They can help with process serving. Mediation is another huge cost that they can help with. And again, they coordinate with those other local organizations like Northwest Justice, Safe Harbor, SARC, DV services for both counties, and a ton of others. So they have interactive forms on their website. If you want to link up with them or support them, go on their website. But certainly, going there to access their services is, a good idea if you're, caught up in the court system, because, it can be daunting for attorneys. Like, I went to law school, right, and graduated, got licensed, and when I came out, family law was daunting for me. So I can only imagine how difficult it is, for someone who doesn't have that background training, plus the resources that I had. So there are organizations out there that will provide services or want to help in any way they can. And that's kind of, I think, where we would want to direct you folks is to those services. You're, of course, welcome to come here and comment, but I think the boards, and again, I don't want to get into legal analysis of what the board can and can't do, but we have the three branches of government, and they're not the ones that rule on those proceedings or even determine the outcome of them. Right? It's a higher court. So really, playing within that system is probably your best bet to get access to justice. And those nonprofit organizations, they are all about enabling people to have access to justice. So, Larry, did you have anything you wanted to add? Okay. All right, that's it.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Administrator updates, Mr. Brian Danzo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the community.
We added one one item to regular business.
Sorry.
This week it wasn't me. I'm good with explaining what my position is, and if the other commissioners would like to adjust, that's fine with me. Mr. Chairman, if you're okay with me.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I talked with our administrator after we received, per the contract that we have with Benton County, we received a final invoice for the betterments for the Columbia Valley Center for Recovery. And I thought a couple people had called me and asked me about this, so I thought I just might read this and then and say kind of what my thought was. Under the terms of the agreement that we have with Benton County on the betterments for the Columbia Valley Center for Recovery, there's two items under the terms of agreement that I'll read from. Number one, this item is for Franklin County to reimburse Benton County for up to $5,470,000 to complete some or all of the project betterments listed in the attachment A as determined by Benton County. And then number two, Benton County agrees to contribute an amount equal to or in excess of that amount contributed by Franklin County to the cost to complete the project betterments listed in attachment A upon request from Benton County certifying completion of specific project milestones. Franklin County agrees to, within 60 days, remit payment to Benton County as outlined below. And then most of that has been done, and then the final piece of it, the final project milestone is the certificate of occupancy. Under the payment, it's the remaining contribution, and that remaining contribution is $2,735,000. So it is my understanding that they have received their certificate of occupancy. They sent us that invoice for that second half payment, and at my request, this board paused that payment until some of the questions could be answered. I have sought and received the answers that I'm comfortable with, and believe that that we should unfreeze that and make that final bill for which the invoice we received yesterday. So that's my request, and that's my thought. I did ask our administrator if he would prepare for this board's consideration a resolution that would unfreeze that second payment, and be my opinion and vote that we would pass that today.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Have we seen this certificate of occupancy?
I have not seen the certificate of occupancy. I've just got in the email, you'll see that, it looks like we have. It says that they've attached the invoice along with certificate of occupancy and the interlocal agreement. So it should be in this packet. If it's, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely want to see that before we release the funds, because that was part of the agreement.
Yeah, and it does say, as the commissioner said, and I think it's important for those that place a high premium on accuracy, whether it's the media or maybe people writing press releases. I think it's really important to know that that this was how it was set up in the agreement, that the agreement itself says, as a recital again, that upon written agreement or request from Benton County certifying completion of the project milestones, this one being certificate of occupancy, we agree to within 60 days.
Yeah.
And I want this because, again, high premium on accuracy, and I want everybody to just get it straight. We got the invoice yesterday. So we've got 60 days from yesterday, but this whole hubbub about this and that and the other, it's right in our agreement that.
So just for clarity, Mr. Danzel, this is coming from a department head, an elected official in Franklin County that basically is calling us out, the commissioners, that we're not going to be able to get our citizens into the recovery center. There will be, because we're not funding it. And it was an elected official from Franklin County, but I want to tell that official and everybody in Franklin County that we have no guarantee that we're going to get occupancy in this. This is open to for every member of the state. And if it's full and we got somebody in Franklin County that needs to be in there, they're not going to get in there. This is one of the questions I asked from the get-go. I wanted this for our local community. But when you do these type of, with the funding from the state and stuff, then it actually, they got precedence over who gets occupancy. So everybody from the state has a chance at this recovery center. And if it's full and we have a member of our society, since we funded it, we're not guaranteed occupancy. Just want to make sure everybody knows that we will not be guaranteed, if it is full, of a member from Franklin County to be able to get residents in this recovery center. So that's the way the question was answered in the get-go, and that's the way it is today. So with that, I just want to say that our elected officials need to stay in their lane. And if you're a sheriff, you concentrate on being the best sheriff of the county. Don't try to be a commissioner. Thank you.
So doesn't it also state that even though we fund it, doesn't give any preference at all, let's say over a neighboring county, if they wanted to send somebody in? We're all on an equal table.
Yes,
there's
exactly.
Whether you pay or not.
That's right.
And then my question would be, didn't we receive a letter from their county administrator saying they didn't want our money? And so it makes me ask, who's running the show? Because if you send a letter saying we don't want your money, figure it out yourself, and then we get a letter saying they want funding from the board, I have to question who's running the show over there, because it doesn't make any sense to me. And so,
Yeah, would you like me to read that?
yes, please.
Yeah, so this was from their deputy administrator. It said, at their regular meeting of January 13th, the board provided direction that they would not be seeking to enter into a joint agreement with Franklin County for the Columbia Valley Center for Recovery. So I would agree with you. It's very, very confusing. It doesn't feel that it's in the best interest of Benton County to enter into additional agreements with Franklin County. So that was on the 14th of January. It was sent to myself and all three Board of Commissioners.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's bewildering, because even with the juvenile justice, we had an opportunity to save the county millions of dollars. And instead of asking, hey, maybe we could save money that way too, they just immediately say they don't want anything to do with us, and made the battle extremely difficult and drug out. So, again, I wonder who's running the show over there.
I would agree, and maybe something that just popped into my little mind here would be, this might be something that would be perfect to run by Rosa Gomez and have up for an action item next week as well. I don't know if that's Commissioner Didier. I don't know if that's what you're.
Yeah, I'll be
want
patient.
Okay.
I mean, as a county commissioner, we made an agreement, and I like to think that not only my word is good, but our county's word is good. But when we start getting conflicting correspondence that they don't want us part of this anymore, the wheels have come off the car. We need to figure this out, and where do we stand on this recovery center? We know we don't have precedence, even though we put all the money with them into it for occupancy, because everybody in the state has that opportunity. But we gave them our word that we would do this, but then they've sent back that they don't want us being part of it. So I'm a little confused here myself.
Would you like me to reach out and ask for clarity and just say,
Yes.
hey, we got a letter saying that you didn't want us to be partners. Now we're getting an invoice saying that you do want us to be partners.
Yes.
We are thoroughly confused. You want me to do that?
I would appreciate that, because it makes it hard to do business in any business, if you're in some type of partnership, each partner has to be able to contribute something. If the other partner doesn't contribute what you need or maybe lack in certain areas, then the partnership is one-sided and it's not valid, not valuable.
So, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
I would like clarity on what do they want, because it's so conflicting.
So, Mr. Chairman, we've got 60 days. We received this yesterday. We got plenty of time to make our payment, but yes, we need to have a discussion.
I would agree.
A piece of what would be helpful to have clarity. I'm pretty clear with I would be comfortable with this today, but I'm okay with waiting. That's fine. But an area that I would like clarity with, there seems to be a little bit of we kind of have two stories. We had a workshop here with Comprehensive that we talked pretty extensively about whether or not there could be priority bed space if we were a paying partner in this, and you can't guarantee and nobody can be turned away is what we were led to understand. And it appears now that there's communication that potentially that there can be people turned away based on their ability to pay. And so that would be helpful to have some clarity on that. Again, I'm comfortable based on this contract and where we're at and them providing a certificate of occupancy. I am comfortable moving forward with this. However, it is in this contract also that we have 60 days, so that gives time for clarity. And so yeah, appreciate you working on that and look forward to seeing this when it comes back.
Thank you. So moving on to Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Danzel.
And for my next trick, no. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the board, Council Briggs, members of the audience. Very much want to say thank you to the folks that have spoken today. One thing that I felt that we've had is a good mutual respect for one another. One of the questions that I have, and this is I kind of want to go over this because I think it's important. So like on your agenda, you'll see that the order of operations, public comment. The public comment is actually intended for people to speak to the consent agenda and the agenda items. Now, our board is extraordinarily lenient, as has been pointed out, for us allowing people to come up and speak. My question would be, and I was wondering if we could just make a friendly hat-in-hand agreement. Next week, we are going to have one heck of a long meeting on appeals when it comes to a land use issue. Is there any way that we could ask you to do your public comments after that? Is that okay to do that? I really appreciate that because that's going to be an enormously long and drawn-out thing, and I think it would be easier on our staff, so I very much appreciate that. On top of that, I'll get into my update here. Over the past week, I've had the opportunity to meet individually. I always feel like I can do it, and I can't do it anymore. Over the past week, I had the opportunity to meet individually with each commissioner to go over the current agenda and hold productive discussions regarding our future projects. I also spent time with various elected officials and department heads to coordinate on ongoing county operations. Regarding legislative matters, and this will be, I think, of particular interest to not just the board, but the folks that I've commented today, participated in a meeting with Representative Stephanie Bernard to discuss the laws regarding less restrictive alternatives that the state of Washington has thrust upon us. Now, I don't like political speak, and so I'm just going to go ahead and say what those are, because a lot of times what I've found is that you hear less restrictive alternatives, that might sound like, a good place for your kids to go if they get in trouble for shoplifting a candy bar over the weekend. That's not what this is. A less restrictive alternative is for sexually violent offenders that come from McNeil Island, and they are now breaking up and per county and per geographic location and trying to house, in some cases, the most famous recently in Kennewick, where they were trying to house it next to not only where other residents live, but also there's been some concern throughout the state. Every parent should have concern throughout the state about these things technically when it comes to how close they are to kids and what we're going to do locally to try, if we can, to stave off some of these issues. But again, the law itself calls for an equal proportionate amount to go in each geographic location. This was followed by a broader meeting with Representative Bernard and Representative Connors and Senator Torres, along with their staff members and members of the coalition, the lobbying team, and other county and city administrators. The focus remains on addressing significant impacts these state-mandated LRA issues have on our local community. But I would suggest and submit to you, gentlemen, also that today, right now, starting now and in the interim, before they're back in legislative session, is really the time to work on this. And the way that I understand it to be is that on procedural motions, it's a completely partisan issue. So if all Republicans, for example, in the State House of Representatives, and I know in the Senate, voted to do away with these to keep the people in McNeil Island, and they can't get 6 senators from the other side of the aisle in the Senate, or 12 senators in the House to come over and vote with them to keep these predators out of our backyards.
12 representatives in the
Washington
12
State.
Yeah, 12 representatives in the House, not 12 senators in the House.
Pardon me, I
Just wanted,
apologize.
and not to stomp on your ground, but this is where you guys can make a difference. You need to get on the phone and start calling these Democrat representatives and senators and saying, stop this nonsense. Do you want them living next to your family? Ask them that.
Yeah, it's been totally party line votes. So I want to thank publicly Representative Bernard, Representative Connors, and Senator Torres because they really did write bills and go to bat. And there's a couple of procedural moves that you can make, like going to the 8th or 9th order of business that kind of circumvents some of the, and there was attempts at that. And so a big thank you, but we do have work to do. We need to get in with folks that are fair-minded about this, and I think put the issue to bed. Moving on, worked with Council Briggs on a number of issues, including but not limited to just this presentation here. I didn't do any of the work on the presentation. I just asked Jeff, Council Briggs, if he was able to talk to these things, as I'm not an attorney, as you gentlemen know. And finally, on an administrative and human services front, I met with our human services project manager, Mr. Vega, and our HR director, Ms. Isom, to discuss veteran services and potential vendors in relation to those efforts. So I want to extend a sincere thank you to Kyle Sullivan in Benton County for being so incredibly helpful to Mr. Vega and to Franklin County as a whole during this process. He really has been, if you're looking for a North Star, and that's Kyle Sullivan and being able to help our project manager on this issue. So, and a huge thank you to our project manager as well. I do have some correspondence outside of the book, but that'll be for the next subject.
Thank you. Commissioner Baumann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Meeting this last week with staff at Ben Franklin Transit. Last week had a pizza party at the jail here at the Department of Corrections. Thank you. I see we have Captain Jansky here in the room. So at the idea, I'm not original to this idea, but a fellow commissioner in another county said that he had done this, and so I offered this to our jail chief, that I said that I would provide the pizza and he could use it to his benefit however. And so what they used it for was they had a clean pod challenge. So the pod that was the cleanest got awarded a pizza party from a commissioner. And so last week I was able to go and provide pizza for all the corrections staff and the administration there in the Franklin County Department of Corrections, as well as the pod that did a good job of good behavior and clean pod. And so congratulations to that pod and to all of our corrections administration and staff there. Thank you for what you do every day. Attended a concert at the Hapo Center, and it was the largest concert I had attended there. I believe they had 5,700 tickets sold, And it was a very large event, and it was pretty remarkable. Had not been to that large of an event at the Hapo Center before, and so my wife and I attended that and was able to watch that take place. It was a Latin concert, and it was very, very well attended, and it was enjoyable. Although I don't speak Spanish very well, it was I really enjoyed that. Had the opportunity to go to the Adult Teen Challenge Gala that happened the other night, and really thankful for the people that run that program, and to all of the help that they provide to people with unique challenges in our community with substance abuse, both alcohol and drugs, and appreciated hearing the stories of success and the parameters that are put around those people that are in that, and thank you to those that run that program. I also attended the less restrictive access facility regional meeting, and absolutely agree with our administrator's assessment that we owe a huge thank you to Representative Bernard, Representative Connors, and Senator Torres for working so hard and pushing on that. There's a possibility that there will be a way for elected officials to potentially go on a tour of McNeil Island that our administrator spoke of, and to his point a little bit more, to Brian's point about the predators that this facility would have held. To give you an idea of what exactly that means, the recidivism rate of the level 3 sex offenders that would have been housed in this, the recidivism rate is 78%. The plan was for 5 of these predators to live in this house, and so with a recidivism rate of 78%, that means 4 of the 5 would have reoffended. And that is a astounding statistic. And for those that have the power to say that they want to put these people back in our community is completely unacceptable. McNeil Island is the place for them. The facility exists, it's operational, that's where they are now, and they need to stay there. And so please let your voice be heard. To give you an idea, the city of Pasco passed a moratorium on less restrictive access housing being placed in the city of Pasco, and they had, I believe it's 4 events scheduled. And I spoke with this a few weeks back and expressed my disappointment with the lack of the community's support. I was at that first meeting, and there was 2 members of the public there. And if you want to be helpful, the only reason that LRA house in Kennewick got stopped was from the community. That was the only way it happened. It did not happen with a procedural or a process. It happened because of the outrage of this community, and I would ask that you get involved, let your voice be heard on this. We do not need LRA houses in Franklin County anywhere. Had a meeting this week with Jeff in our PA's office and our juvenile court administrator. Thank you for that meeting. Always appreciate the collaboration there. I did 3 news interviews over the last week, 2 of them pretty specifically about the Columbia Valley Center for Recovery and the fact that Franklin County was not invited to that opening. I found out that there was a grand opening there after the center opened, and like the mayor of the city of Pasco expressed his disappointment for not having received an invitation, still believe that this is critically necessary for our community, and thankful that it is about to open and look forward to the good that it can do here in our communities. I received a call from Tridec about the shoreline reconveyance, and I expressed my support for where it's at, and would ask that this board support that, and the time is growing close to where that it is a literal act of Congress for this to move forward, and believe that we are growing close to that point, and would ask that this board soon, when the time is proper, that we would support the effort that is going on there, and to help move that forward. And had, of course, meeting with our administrator on agenda prep and general conversation. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Didier.
Yes, just want to thank Mr. Danzel for being so accommodative on the agenda and meeting with me and going over the agenda. He goes out of his way to make sure that we're all informed and have the proper readiness for the meeting. I got a phone call from a neighbor, and he says, I know you probably get a lot of people calling, and they're all upset and mad at you, and they're always complaining, but he goes, I want to call and give you a compliment. And I said, okay. And he said, I don't know who's running the spraying by the roads, but the lines are straight, the chemicals are putting down are working great. He goes, I said, well, that's Todd Harris with the Weed Control Board. And so I seen him at church, and I told him, passed on the compliment. And of course, as a good leader, he says, well, I don't do that spraying. That's my employees. And I said, well, it's a reflection of leadership. Great job. So Todd Harris, big shout out to you. Read 2 articles, one here in this Tri-Cities Journal of Business. Washington governor signs bill driven by fatal mid-Columbia crashes, and this is about 395. What's troubling about this is that in here it states that this Ferguson signed the bill, ESSSB 6066. The numbers on the bill are very troubling to me. But it says here, the bill will allow local governments and the State Department of Transportation to designate crash prevention zones, which will require agencies to study the area. But what this is doing is this is giving the public the wrong perception. We had no say in lowering the speed limit to 65. We have no say on the cameras they're going to put out there and send you a ticket. Totally against cameras on the roadways. We're not having any consultation about what we want. It's just being done. I, for one, have not been consulted. I don't know about my fellow commissioners, but I haven't been consulted on anything. I wanted traffic lights out there because when someone comes to an area they're not familiar with, they get disoriented. And crossing 2 lanes of traffic, they understand a red light and a green light. That's how you're going to prevent these crashes. Lowering at 5 miles an hour will not prevent crashes. You still got trucks blocking the view of the people trying to cross the roadway. You're just near miss the other day. So we're not being consulted on this. And I've had several people calling me very upset that we lowered the I said, we didn't lower the speed limit. We did not do that. We don't have the ability to do that. That's a state, and more importantly, it's Thomas Foley Highway. It's a federal highway. We have no say on that. And for this to be printed is a disservice to us commissioners that we have influence on what's going on out there and what's happening. We don't. Supreme Court rules on voting rights striking down Louisiana map. This is huge, just came out. I just got it this morning. This redistricting that we went through and the court costs that we had to pay because they wanted 2 commissioners from Pasco and only 1 from North County. They tried to redraw our maps for us, tried to push it down our throat. We fought it, thanks to Commissioner Mullen, who was in office at that time, and myself. And we got it put almost back the way it was, but this will finalize it. We'll go back to the general will be district only. The primary will be county at large to pick your commissioners. Reverse that? Yeah. So the primary will be county at large.
I believe that it's going to go back to the primary will be your district, and then the general will be county at large.
Okay, maybe that's the way it is. But anyway, yeah, I could be wrong on that. I think I am. But yeah, it's going to go back the way we had it. I mean, and they're claiming that this is all based on race. Well, the Supreme Court just ruled, no, we're not basing nothing. We are a melting pot. We are all part of a race or multiple races. So, yes. Now, as far as the attendees, keep doing what you're doing. Start calling those representatives, start calling the senators. We do have budgetary discretion over the courts, but that's all we've got. Court commissioners, Jeff, I want to ask you, Would this be something that we might want to entertain, is the election of court commissioners instead of the appointment of? Because when I noticed that we've got a court commissioner right now that's running for a judgeship. And we need to have these put forth by the people and not appointed by the judges, because all we're doing is, if there is, we're enabling them to further their fraud.
Yeah, I think I'd have to look into that more, but I know the judges have to run, they're appointed for the remainder of their term, and then they have to run for their next full term. So, but you're talking about commissioners being elected.
Elected.
Yeah, it's something I could look into for you.
Please, because I got that thrown at me and I didn't know the answer to it.
Okay.
But yes, we need to look into maybe getting our commissioners elected. Judges are elected. That's where, again, you can have a big voice. Judges and formulate a way of getting the message out to the community. And let's start cleaning up our court system. And then, of course, an attorney, Jeff, maybe if you know a good pit bull attorney that gets in there and fights, that's what these people need, especially the ones that are fighting for custody of their children.
Right.
They need somebody that's going to, and I know that, what is you mentioned it, Brian, the Washington, they do a lot of things pro bono, and that's Washington policy?
So there's multiple organizations that do things pro bono. The first one I was talking about is Ben Franklin Legal Aid,
okay.
And they might be. And again, there's cards out there on the table for that organization, but they might be a good one, even if they can't help a specific person, because they network so well with the other organizations. They could direct them that way. There used to be, through Gonzaga School of Law, the Moderate Means program, and that's what I participated in early on in my career. And what they would do is a sliding fee scale. My understanding is that program right now is on pause. But the way that a sliding fee scale works is, it goes up if someone has more income, goes down for someone. So basically trying to make that affordable within someone's...
What happens if they're being levied fines and they're having to come up with most of their earnings to pay for those, and they can't afford an attorney?
If they're legal financial obligations, that is another area where these organizations can provide help, particularly if someone's indigent and it's a criminal LFO, not a traffic one. Those are the types of fines that we are seeing being discharged by the courts. It's frankly cumbersome. You would think that they could just do it at the sentencing, but there's certain mandatory LFOs that they have to impose at sentencing, and then you could turn around the next day and seek to have them waived. It's quite frankly nonsensical. But sometimes attorneys just shrug our shoulders and say, well, that's what the law says. There's stumbling blocks, and that's why it's good to have a good advocate on your side. And these organizations, they do care. I mean, these are people, like, I've sworn to uphold the Constitution twice, once as an attorney and once as a soldier. But these folks, they've dedicated their entire lives to helping those that are less fortunate, and they're very passionate about it. They're exactly the sort of person that you would want helping you in that sort of situation. So.
And one last thing, I just want everybody to, when you get your Constitution out, look at the second half of the Declaration when it says, against the king, he has erected a multitude of new offices, sent out his hither swarm of officers to harass our people and to eat out their substance. That's what's going on in Washington State right now. That's what's going on. And it takes we the people to stand and fight against it. I applaud you for fighting, especially for your children. That means you love them and you care. I wish there was more people that would fight for their children. But know that we can't be that silver lining for you. We can control their budget. That's all we can do. We can't run them out of office, but you're doing a great job sounding the alarm so the people can get involved. Thank you.
Thank you. So, being handed the certificate of occupancy for the Recovery Center during the meeting, kind of a last minute. handout. I'm excited to see that they have established it. The issue date on the certificate, as Mr. Deers pointed out, was April 14th, and yet we received it today, the 29th. I'm glad to see the certificate of occupancy because I do believe that the Recovery Center is a much-needed facility for our area. I don't like the conflicting letters and comments that come in and say that they don't want our money, don't want to be a partner. That's on them. This whole thing stemmed from the Juvenile Justice Center, and they've made it pretty clear they don't want to be partners with us on anything. And in fact, they even brought the coroner's office into it. And rather than working together and trying to find a better solution at a lower cost, all we've been getting is retaliatory actions against us. But I am glad to see that their certificate of occupancy is here. I do believe it's a much needed service for our community. So also this week I had the Chamber of Commerce meeting here in Pasco. And then also I want to bring forward an article that is on YouTube. It's called Western Justice Wolves, and it just came out. And it explains the economic impact that it has on a community, not only the families in the ranching, but the restaurants in town, the hotels in town, because simply our deer, elk, and moose have declined 80% since they reintroduced the wolves. And these wolves that they've introduced are not native wolves. The native wolves originally were much smaller. These ones were, excuse me, brought in from the Yukon, and they're huge. They're used to taking down moose and elk. A white-tailed deer doesn't stand a chance against them, or do cattle. It's gotten so bad that the ranchers aren't even renewing their grazing allotments anymore because they simply cannot take the loss of cattle. And that's concerning too, because those grazing monies, they go to your school system. It just gives a clear picture of the impact that it has on everybody and the regulations. One of the comments I liked best about the documentary was, we have a wildlife specialist up there. He's deputized in both Stevens and Ferry County. And he says, to explain it, probably the easiest way I know how is, he says, if you and a friend were walking down a dock on a lake and it says no swimming, your friend stumbles and falls in. Now, I have the resources to save him, but the sign says no swimming. So at what point do you have to make a judgment call and do the right thing? It's about 40 minutes long. It's very educational. I think it'll answer a lot of questions anybody has on the wolves. And if nothing else, the scenery is absolutely stunning. So whoever made the documentary with the filming did an excellent job. So again, that's Western Justice. It's called Wolves, and it's on YouTube. Thank you. Mr. Danza, correspondence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I watched it. And it was wonderful. I think I agree with you. A lot of people would be well to watch that. You have correspondence in your packet from IS Director Bo Beckley regarding the radio tower sites and what you gentlemen would like done with the remaining equipment, but also if you wish to transfer our stuff to the BCES. And so you'll see that letter in there. I recommend reading it, considering it, and coming up with what your best answers would be to Mr. Beckley. In addition to that, I have received two other pieces of correspondence. One is from the coroner, Mr. McGarry, Coroner McGarry, and Mr. McGarry is asking for the funds to be able to purchase an AED machine so that they can gain accreditation. I'm going to take one and then I'll pass one down so that you gentlemen can have one. And then finally, the last piece that I have is, I think I'm giving you now, a letter from the city of Pasco. And then as it pertains to outgoing correspondence, I will draft a letter as instructed to gain clarity on whether we're wanted or not.
Do we need to go into executive session for that?
No, I don't think so.
For the letter from Pasco?
No, I'm just sharing that with you right now. I'm just saying that I'll write a letter to Benton County, outgoing letter to Benton County seeking clarification on that.
Yes. I'm in agreement with that, please.
And that's the end of correspondence as we have it.
All right, thank you,
You
Mr.
bet.
Danzel. I just want to add too, I just want to thank Mr. Briggs on his presentation. I know that was extra work for you. I appreciate it because our citizens need to know the proper avenues to help fight their case. So I just want to say thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Baumann.
Thank you. I just wanted to express, similar to Commissioner Didier, my disappointment and frustration with the lowering of the speed limit on 395 and the process with which that took place. Having been the ones that have been raising the issue and the concern and having the meeting at the HAPO Center and trying to figure out how to work on this, and then the Washington State Department of Transportation making no effort whatsoever to communicate with us. I have no idea what their plan is. I have no idea what they're doing, what their justification is, why they're doing it. There's been no communication whatsoever. And Senator Torres reached out to me and asked if I knew about it. She was getting lots of calls, people thinking that this is what our request was, and I didn't know it was happening until I got the call from Senator Torres, expressed that to her that I didn't know that it was happening. And so I wanted to express my disappointment and frustration that they made no effort to communicate with us on lowering the speed limit or what their plan is. Still haven't heard anything, no idea what they've got going on. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Chairman, with that, what they did here is they've created a speed trap. They've lowered it from 70 to 65, and now they're going to put up cameras. So obviously, it's just a revenue gathering machine. That's all it is.
I hadn't heard about that. They're planning to put up speed cameras.
Yep.
Didn't
It's
know
in the
that.
article right there. They're putting up cameras. So
I would concur with the thoughts of both Baumann and Didier on the 395. I think it's our job to bring it to their attention, and that's what we tried to do. But we have nothing and no control over that stretch of highway. With all the farming that's there, and it is a farming community, we need an overpass. I mean, that's, in my opinion, one of the simplest solutions, even though it would be expensive. But, I know every time I cross with either machinery or a trailer, I go all the way down to King City and cross, because it's like playing Frogger trying to get across there. And it's even worse when, other people are trying to cross, at destinations. There's just no way to get over it unless you go down to King City. That's a long ways to drive with a tractor and heavy equipment. There has to be another pass that's in between there and Connell, at least for starters. Because those accidents happen so quickly. Somebody in front of you brakes and you can't see them because you're behind a semi, and all of a sudden the semi's locking it up, and next thing you know, you have an accident. So it's a very dangerous stretch of highway. But I would agree, we weren't asked about lowering the speed limit or anything like that. It's a federal highway. So we have no jurisdiction over it. In fact, they actually told us to apply for a grant, and I'm like, well, how do you apply for a grant on something that you don't own or control? So anyways, yes.
I also, just to kind of strengthen the position of the board here, you'll remember, I'm sure, that in our letter, our outgoing letter to both the Washington State Department of Transportation and the Federal Department of Highway Administration, we asked, that was our original ask, was for overpasses for frontage roads and for lights like up in Moses Lake on Highway 17. And we got cameras and a 5 miles an hour lower speed limit. So I just wanted to put that out there, that our original request, if they did want to take our advice, included what you gentlemen have talked about.
All right, thank you. Public comment. We'll now move into the public comment section. Is there anyone in the room for public comment? If so, please come forward, state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Marcy Torres, and I wanted to go ahead and address something that hasn't been addressed yet, but I think it's important for taxpayers. If our funds are funding nonprofits, we need to be vetting them to see where the money's going and if it's actually going to people, because I just looked up every single one of those nonprofits and their reviews are terrible. Through my life, I've reached out to many of those, and I've never have received any help. You look at the reviews and a lot of people are posting that they've called for a whole week and they don't answer. So are these funds that are actually going to actually help people, or are we, who's getting paid and who's receiving the funding? I also want to address this as domestic violence. I do understand domestic violence services is important, but we do have an issue. We have Norma Rodriguez, who has signed many of the protection orders, ex parte motions, for a lot of the women in this room. Her sister is the domestic violence director. So when she signs these protective orders, that creates a natural referral for domestic violence services. Did you know that since Norma Rodriguez took the bench, domestic violence services has received more money than it ever has, and it also has been operating in a deficit since she took the bench in 2022. They were actually making a profit the 2 years prior to her taking the bench. So I do have questions. Where is the money going, and how is the money being used? And who is domestic violence services paying with taxpayer dollars? Where is the money going? And I think those are questions that are valid for every single one of our community members, because if we're going to be funding nonprofits, we need to know exactly where that money's going. And we need to do this every single year, every single month. We need to be knowing exactly where our money is going. And we need to start asking questions. And you guys are seeing the retaliation of asking questions. That's what happens. You start asking questions, you start making people accountable, and they retaliate. And they send letters, and they tell you that they don't want you to be part of their club anymore, because now all of a sudden you're holding them accountable. But if you are receiving taxpayer funding, it comes with the territory. As a business, I couldn't operate at a deficit for 3 years. Why is a nonprofit able to do that? Another thing is, when there is calls for Pasco PD, Richland PD, Kennewick PD, and there's an alleged domestic violence, that's also creating domestic violence referrals. Are those the numbers that are being used to say, we need the funding? Because if you look at the 990 forms that Domestic Violence Services is filing every year, they state that their purpose is to end domestic violence. How are they trying to end it? You go in there and they barely ever have anybody in that office. Are they going to the schools, reaching out to the schools? I'm probably doing more work than they've ever done since they've operated, if I'm being honest. And I'm not asking you for taxpayer money. So I would like to invite you guys to start holding people accountable and do what you can to audit. Thank you.
Hey, Commissioners, sorry I'm missed a lot this morning. I apologize. I'm dealing with court. But Mindy Tanimoto, I just wanted to follow up with what Marcy was saying because I specifically did reach out to these nonprofits. So when I went on PFML and then I lost my job, I did reach out to Ben Franklin Legal Aid. That was March 2nd. I had to call pretty much every week and I got the same response. It's being reviewed. Your income's being reviewed. We'll get back to you by the end of this week or next week. A month went by. I got a response 2 weeks ago, and they can't help me. I asked why. They said, I didn't meet the income limit. I said, I'm on paid family medical leave right now. That's my only source of income. I'm unemployed. They had no explanation for me at all. I also have a domestic violence advocate. Her name's Shannon. She's one of the managers over there, and she had told me that they just don't have a lot of resources for us. She has spent some after-hours time for free with me, helping me, going to counseling sessions and speaking with other counselors. But the fact that she said they just don't have enough help, and then hearing that they just got, I guess, a grant, I have no clue where the money is going. I know that my advocate's not seeing it, and she's over there. So again, I mean, I had no idea. It would be nice to know where the money's going for these facilities because I've received absolutely no help. And I know a lot of other people haven't either. And I don't have a solution yet, other than we ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. My name's Tara Harlow. I'm a registered nurse. I graduated from WSU Tri-Cities in 2008. I've been a nurse in this community for 18 years.
Can I have you pull the mic down a little bit? Thank you.
In 2018, I went through a divorce where my ex-husband was beating me and raping my daughter. I could not get help. I went to domestic violence services as well as SARC. Jody, who at the time was the director of SARC, I could not get help from her. In fact, she didn't believe me. RPD told me I was a liar. Every day, once a day, for 365 days, I called RPD asking for help. On the 1 year mark, I started speaking out publicly, which landed me in jail. I spent 18 days in jail. I left Texas. I took my daughter and we left to Texas because I attempted 6 times to get a no contact order and was unable. He had an attorney. I did not. I didn't qualify for services. My base wage is $120,000 a year. This was maybe a little less prior to COVID, but I hadn't worked in a year and I could not get help. I didn't qualify for anything. Andy Miller is the one that put me in jail. He told my attorney, we will see the end of this, because I called him an accomplice to pedophilia when he refused to attempt to prosecute my ex when I had evidence on nanny cam of what he was doing to my daughter. So, thank you.
Anyone else in the room for public comment?
Couple comments. With regard to the ulterior housing of criminals in our communities, I do want someone to start thinking constitutionally about this. This may not be the proper, but I do think that there's something wrong with that constitutionally. We're supposed to be able to live in our persons and have safety. But I did look under, there's a lot in here. Special legislation, section 28 of Article 2, and then subsection 17. Section 28 starts out by saying the legislature is prohibited from enacting any private or special laws in the following cases, and there's 18 of them. Number 17 says, for the limitation of civil or criminal actions. How in the world
does our legislature have the right to take people out of McNeil Island and put them in our communities? That cannot be constitutional. We have to start fighting our legislature on constitutional grounds. And I think I sent an email regarding Mr. Peterson, who is the counsel for McKinstry. Yes, you're allowed to have a part-time job in the legislature, but that does not give you the right to make the laws that are based with a compact with another country and then control the funds and assign them as sole source to McKinstry to make you improve everything at HAPO. That is not okay. My desire is for the counties to start wrapping up together and balkanizing, because when the legislature doesn't behave, you are the legislators that stand up and say no. And that's what's happening with the sheriff's thing. That's what's happening with First Amendment petitions. That's what's happening with having a constitutional committee to look at the legislation coming in and push it back out. And I implore you in due time to have a nice workshop on that. Because when the people work together with their local government and their local government pushes back on a clearly an unconstitutional government in our state, you put them on the run. And we have won the tear gas situation with our sheriffs. A florist, an innocent lady, took 12 years of a beating. Your neighbor, my best friend. And she won because of the Constitution. The same thing with Union Gospel Mission. The same thing with Joe Kennedy. These people have paid a price, and they never had a harmful intent in their life. But they had to go and stand on the Constitution. When we stand on it, it'll stand by us. So it's very disturbing to hear this constant pushing of people into our community that they don't belong here. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room for public comment? Is there any callers on the phone?
No callers. Hello, Commissioners. Cataspinda again. I heard Andy Miller's name today. Tri-Citian of the Year 2025. These people have a club. There's a club that's going on. And I think Andy Miller started SARC, actually. Sexual Abuse Recovery Center. I heard Jody's name. I know Rosanna Herrera, too. I've talked to both ladies there. And Jody sends out AI letters for her responses. It's not even from her. I can tell. I can read when it's AI. Every single agency has been exhausted in this town. I don't know how much Jody makes or Rosanna makes at SARC. They are the gatekeepers for Andy Miller, so that he can make sure he knows who's coming in and out of these places. And I think Andy Miller has a reason to be protective in this system. And so the other thing is Megan Whitmire. She's adjudicated in my case. You mentioned the commissioners needing to be elected. Yes. They bring in Megan Whitmire, the commissioner, when it's time to close the deal. She acts really nice all the way up to the end, and then she slits your throat right at the end. This is what's happening right now. Children are being pulled from their parents. Parents are losing all their money by design because we have demons at the top. Andy Miller is a demon. And he can sue me. I would love to bring my evidence in on what these people do. I have tons. You know why? Because I am an advocate. So people come to me. You know why they come to me? Because the advocates that are getting paid millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in this town aren't doing anything for the people. I had a friend who died October 6th, 2025. Her grandson was raped up the butt at year old, and her son-in-law, it was videoed by her husband. So her husband videoed her son-in-law raping his 1-year-old. And that man is protected and related to a big family here in this town. I was going to talk about something completely different, but this is really pissing me off at this point. So you mentioned about the no swimming. That's a legality, right? What do? Do you choose to follow that, or do you save your friend? This is where we're at. We're at the point where we have to make a decision. Something's legal. Abortion's legal. Does that make it right? No. We're talking about life here. We're talking about children. And we need men and women to stand up and to do the right thing. So legal and lawful, totally different. All law comes from God, from the Bible, all law. And I mean, the Muslims call their God Allah. There's a reason for that. There's double speak going on here. So we're propping up these men, and the Benton County Commissioners are complicit. And if you're protecting pedophiles, you might be one. And I've heard from all of you today, you all sound like you are against it. So thank you. I appreciate that. But this is going to escalate. So thank you.
I'm Melissa Good, a member of this community, and I would like to continue on with what I was talking about earlier. So I investigated this case with this attorney, Jerry Davis, that was prosecuted several years ago, where he gained custody through the CPS system of a 3- and 5-year-old and was sodomizing them. And he was not only sodomizing them, there are so many questions and concerns that I have. The reason that he finally got caught doing this is because he was offering up for others on a dating site to come and accompany him to do this to these young boys. And somebody reported him because clearly that's pretty disgusting. But you have to wonder, how long did this go on? How long were these kids trafficked, right? Because that is trafficking. When you use your power, your influence, your control in a court to gain custody of young boys and you abuse them. In fact, he was drugging and raping them for 3 years and inviting others to participate with him. And very interestingly, in one of these newspaper articles, it states an unidentified male was accompanying him in these acts. Yet there's no other statement anywhere that I can find. Who is this unidentified male? Why are they unidentified? There's phone records. There's all these things you can do to figure out who was that person that was participating with him in this area. Why aren't they being held accountable? Wouldn't it be in the papers if they were accompanying an attorney doing this? He was initially busted with a whole bunch of child porn in his home. That was the very first thing that happened after everything happened with the report from the dating site. He was allowed, or is allowed, to serve concurrent terms of being convicted on one count of child molestation, as he was the pornography. So he may serve as little as 7 years, regardless of the fact that it was, because that's the minimum term for the life sentence. I have questions. Why was this one count when there were 2 victims? And why is it only one thing, just molestation? When he was trafficking, when he was doing these other things, these egregious things to these young children. Another thing that I find really disturbing that I just have to bring to the attention of our community is the fact that evidently Megan Whitmire was his defense attorney. And now I understand when you're an attorney, it's your job to just do your job without bias, correct? You're a defense attorney, you're there to defend that person. It is their legal right to have a defense, no matter what they've done, no matter how heinous, egregious, disgusting, sadistic, whatever. True. However, is it normal or is it suspicious that she said on record, a quote in the paper, "I am very fond of Jerry. He still has so much to offer this community," and presides over family court. Do you want that person presiding over family court for you and your kids and the kids of this community? Someone who's very fond of a convicted pedophile? Do you?
Hello again. Aaron, Benton County, and Again, it's the same stories of weaponization of our court system, intimidating the parents, and it's the same names. Megan Whitmire, Norma Rodriguez, and I've seen it for myself. The truth doesn't matter in court. I've witnessed them adjudicate, how they come in, they've already got their decision made. They're just reading. These people in robes are actors. And I'm well aware that they're watching this because we are being watched, and the things that we're saying are making them very uncomfortable, and I think that's great. I want to put them all on notice. I'm looking right at the camera. You're going to be stopped. We are peaceful. We are nonviolent, but it's going to end, and you're going to stop hurting children and tearing apart families.
Is there anyone else in the room for public comment?
Andy, again, I'll say a little bit more. Commissioner Didier, I did appreciate what you said, what you threw out there about electing the commissioners. Excuse me, because as you heard, we have a defense attorney for a pedophile acting as a court commissioner making decisions on tearing apart families. And as the last lady said, when you do your job, and it goes back to the no swimming on the dock thing. You can choose what you do for your job, and you don't have to. If you're going to defend a pedophile, you need to you need to live your life in a way that shows other areas, and not go ripping children from families that could then go to the pedophile. So I think, having as people that these commissioners are ruling over, we need to have a say in who's making those decisions. We get to elect the judges, and then all of a sudden we have this commissioner. My two children were, the first hearing with my two children was Commissioner Peterson. She is no longer working there. But she made a ruling that my children should never see me or my wife or anybody that they knew previously ever again. And she made that based on hearsay. And last week there was a lady that called into this meeting that was talking about her case after 7 forensic interviews. I think 7 was the number I heard. They ruled that it was just hearsay of a child, and there was nothing there, even though the person they were talking about had documented images on their computer, thousands of images. But it was just hearsay of a child. My case, hearsay of a child, took my children away from me, and I've never been with them since. There's a two-tiered system. It's not. It doesn't work the same everywhere. And you have a commissioner that nobody in the community had a say in whether she presided over any cases ever. So I think that electing these court commissioners is a step. It's a good thing. I think if we can, however we do that. Now, like I said before, go into the representatives, go into the senators. Everybody says, well, we can't, that's not in our wheelhouse. We can't do this, we can't do that. But where do we go? And all the resources that Council Briggs gave, you heard people are saying they don't work.
You had came forward for a second. Did you want to comment on the second public comment?
My name is Sherry Elizabeth, and I wanted to correct that. The most recent was April 23rd. Judge James Bell illegally had made me go up onto the thing, and he had me taken into custody. Ryan Riddle, Franklin Deputy Sheriff, didn't read me my rights, And I was forced to give $250 for Jennifer L. Johnson's illegal bench warrant that was issued improperly because she wasn't a judge. She was a civil deputy prosecutor. And I met with Commissioner Bauman 2 years ago about it, and he gave me the information and verified it as part of my complaint. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the room for public comment?
Sorry, but you guys made me feel better. My problem, DHSH, I'd be costing you a lot more money. They wouldn't have the opportunity. My issue is legal aid and stuff. I'm construction. If you need a fence built, something poured, I can do everything but get truck drivers not to drive on my stakes. But when it comes to legal, when you go there, they tell you this, okay, you think you're going to have an opportunity to, like it was, at least stand in front of them and discuss it, and they don't. They go right after taking your money, and then they say, well, you have 10 days, well, you file this, well, then you got to wait the 90, go back, and they say, well, here's the decisions. They don't quote any code or anything, just, nope, you're out of luck. Try again. So you try again. I asked 26 times for help. I actually submitted training. I was one of the main trainers, flew all over the country, training pipeline, natural gas, radiation I've had certifications since 2000 that I don't have anymore. So now I have to compete with the young kids that go through that it doesn't leave me anywhere to keep going. But they don't care. They are collectors. They process things. And when it comes to help, legal aid and stuff like that, I go and talk to them. And like we have to, educate yourself. Go through, read, and boy, case law I'm going through, I'll stick to construction. It's tough for me. I go through and I talk to them, I'm like, no, it's this. And they're like, no, we don't think so. Trust me, bud, I've been reading a lot. That's what I do. But it's tough. And when it comes to help, unfortunately, Benton Franklin County suicide rates for men that age period is 80%. But you go for any kind of help for men here, there's nothing. I had another person, 3-year-old, wife's pregnant, found out she was doing drugs. The child was born drugs. They told him, if you want to change your gender, we have funding for you. Other than that, there's nothing for you. That's ridiculous. Especially me, I've asked 26 times. And I have it right in there, because you can't believe anything. You have to put in a request for information. That's the only way you're going to find anything with them. And you finally get it, and they know they did wrong. They know they took out thousands, but they're not going to admit it and give it back. But they'll keep riding it. I just keep fighting. I'm not sure what to do, but they're not going to listen. They don't investigate. Even the people that started my case, they fired for misconduct, but they won't go back and look. So now I have to go through, like you said, go through 3 different boards and I have to limit every possible course of action before it gets into Superior Court. I'm 6 years into it. Gonna give me that time back with the child? No. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room for public comment? Is there, pardon me? Sure.
It might be helpful and beneficial. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that popped into my head as I was listening to folks again here is that one actionable item that these commissioners have taken, and it won't necessarily help in going back in time, but at the beginning of this legislative session this year, you all 3 unanimously supported a measure to split the judicial district. in Benton and Franklin County. And doing so, the reasons that were given were that when you do that, if we had only Franklin County judges, and this might not help the Benton County folks, and only Benton County judges, then that judge is then directly elected by the people of Franklin County. As it is today, 2/3 of the votes come out of Benton County. So that can kind of skew the voting, and it kind of hurts the direct representation that I think people expect in the judiciary. And so that might be one of the things when we talk about like out-of-the-box ideas, or if you're asking your lawmakers. I think that it's got public support, and I think it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen in this next session. I hope it is. So that would be something that I think that you could tangibly hold on to, that you could say, hey, listen, we're probably not going to be able to fix every single person's issues, but if we were able to split the district, then they would be directly accountable to the people that are within that county. Does that make sense? I think that's a move in the right direction as well. So that's just something that you gentlemen had pushed. It was a short session, so it didn't get through. I believe that one of the representatives here locally is going to actually sponsor this bill this next year. And so it looks like that's got a pretty good probability of happening. So I believe in the short order, we're going to have a Franklin County Superior Court, and separate of that, we'll have a Benton County Superior Court. So I just wanted to add that as for context for everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Briggs, I have a question. On these nonprofit groups, do they have board of directors?
You know, I haven't really looked into the organizational structure of them in great detail. A lot of them will have an executive director, and then maybe but I don't know if they answer to a board. I do know that Benton Franklin Legal Aid, their primary source of funding, because I know that came up, is interest off of IOLTA accounts. IOLTA accounts are trust accounts that attorneys have. So all the interest off of those accounts go to the state, and the state sort of gives those out to local legal aid organizations to help people have access to justice. But sorry, yeah, I don't know the exact composition and structure of all these organizations.
All right, thank you. Is there a need for executive session today? Yes, and for how long and under what RCW code?
Okay, RCW 4230 110 1I, potential litigation.
I believe we should go for a half hour.
Half hour, so I guess the board will be there, the county administrator, myself, Ms. Lloyd. Anyone else besides the clerk?
Miss Isom will be in for part of it.
Yeah. All right, so at this point, we'll go into an executive session for 30 minutes. Time is 11:06. We'll be back at 12:36 or 12:06.
Jeff back in too, I think, right?
Yeah, he can leave during the closed session if we're just gonna.
Jeff.
We've come out of executive session with no decisions being made. We're going to go back into executive session under the same RCW code for 5 minutes. We've come out of executive session with no decisions being made. Is there any other business for the good of the county?
Mr. Chairman, I think that we should accept the request that the coroner made. So it would be my motion that we accept the request that the coroner made for the purchase of an AED for the coroner's office up to $1,500.
I second. That is for his accreditation, right?
Correct.
Yes.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.